Hi Eddie. First thing, can we look at the injury situation? Because you mentioned after the victory over Manchester City that your squad was looking a bit stretched. No Callum Wilson or Sven Botman the other night. How are those two? Could they be back for Burnley?
Callum, we're gonna see today. Very minor hamstring tightness, so we're giving him every chance to be available for the game. Same with Sven. We're going to make a late check on him. Harvey's obviously out. The other long-termers continue to be out. Joe Willock's out. Emil Kraft's out, but he plays tonight for the 21s, which is really, or 23s, really good to see Emil. Hopefully come back and do well today. Dan Burns had some illness, but we think he'll be okay.
Is Alexander Isak all right? You mentioned there was a possible calf problem on Wednesday.
He's another one that we're just going to make a late check on. So that's the cost of the 3 games that we had last week. It's usually the third game where these things build up, and that's where we are.
And then you've got to do it all again the next week, starting this weekend. It's a punishing schedule, isn't it?
It is for us. It's totally different to last year, where we were able to go week to week and train intensely and really prepare thoroughly for each game. Now we're still trying to prepare thoroughly, but in a much more condensed time, which is a challenge. And obviously the challenge for the players is to recover physically and mentally for each game.
You talked after the match in praise of a lot of your players who came in and some who hadn't had a match for a while. What about the skipper, Jamal Lascelles? Because it's been a difficult probably 18 months for him, but he slotted straight in there and produced a fantastic performance. I'm sure you expected no less, but it was probably really good for you to see.
Yeah, very difficult, I think, for players to come in when they haven't played regularly. I think that's a big test. You've got to find your rhythm straight away in the game. I thought Jamal did really well with Paul. I thought they played very well together. I think the true test to how you're going to play is how you train, and it's being consistent with your training. So when you're not playing regularly, can you be consistent in your energy, in your positivity, in your application to your training? Those guys have, and it showed in their performance. I think Jamal's been very good behind the scenes. I've said this many times, but he has been hugely positive, and I think he's enjoyed being part of an incredible team. Now he wants to play and he wants to show his values, and I was really pleased with it.
Over the last 2 weeks in 3 different competitions, you've had 4 huge results. So where you are now compared to where you were going into the international break after those 3 defeats, how much progress have you seen, and what do you feel has changed to get you into this stronger position that you're now in?
I think the start point was our defensive resilience. I think that's been at the forefront of our results in recent weeks. We've looked solid again. We've had that solidity right through the middle of the pitch. Who's ever played, and I think we've been consistent in our work in that respect. So I'm very pleased with the response defensively, and I always believe then if you can be solid, we have the players that can hurt teams. I think we showed that against Manchester City. Even during a really difficult first half for us, we still had probably the best chance of the game right at the end of the half, with a really good counter-attack, and then of course the second half was totally different. But it really was that first half performance where we were very good in covering zones and holes that enabled us to win the match.
Last couple of things this weekend, a rare thing, you'll play on Saturday afternoon in the 3 o'clock slot, first time since April, first time at home since New Year's Eve. As a manager, would that always be your preference to have a game Saturday afternoon at 3?
It's funny because Lee told me that just before coming in, and I wasn't aware of that. I suppose I'm still a bit of a traditionalist in that respect. As a kid, I was always 3 o'clock on a Saturday was the moment you sort of planned your week around. I'm sort of still the same. I still love that Saturday at 3 o'clock. It's inbuilt in me, I think. I don't think I'll ever go away from that, but of course we accept now we play different times, different days, and you sort of get used to that. It's quite random.
And finally, Burnley, all 3 promoted sides are yet to win in the Premier League, and clearly it's been a tough introduction for them back into the top flight, but they seem to be doing things a bit differently to how they did before they were relegated. How will taking on this Burnley compared to the Burnley of old be different for you?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. They're doing it very differently, and there's no right or wrong, of course. You can do it loads of different ways. I think they will always stick, from what I see, to their current model of playing. I've got to say, it was hugely impressive last year what they did. The goals they scored, the games they won, and the style that they did it in was great to watch. We played Burnley last pre-season, and we had 2 really good games with 2 different 11s at the same time, and it was a really good game, and got to speak to Vincent after the game and his staff, and what they did following that game was, as I say, a credit to them, and great to see Burnley doing well, great to see them back in the Premier League. It will be very different to the previous Burnley teams who were very effective in a different way, but they're going to want the ball and we're going to want the ball, so it's going to be a really big challenge for us, but one hopefully we can rise to.
Thank you, Keith.
On Harvey, Eddie, you said that he's definitely missing tomorrow. Is there any confirmation yet from the specialist as to how long he will be out for?
Yeah, we think he's going to be out for around 3 months. So no surgery required, which is good news. But his foot is now in a boot. It is a sort of an injury underneath his toe. And yeah, he's now started his recovery, and I think he's going to be quite sedate for a period of time because he's got to rest the toe and he's got to give it every chance to recover, and then we'll have to build him up slowly, so that's why it's the 3 months.
I guess when you're just a couple of months in at your new club, it's the last thing you want. Obviously surgery would have been worse than that, but it's come at a bad time for him, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's come at a shocking time for Harvey because he was just beginning to find his rhythm, and I think he had a good pre-season, and I think he was getting to know his teammates and what was expected of him here. With so many games coming up, to lose any player is a huge blow for us. We need the strength and depth, and everything that Harvey was going to bring us hopefully was goals and attacking play in that final third, making the difference. So we have to deal with it, accept it, and we wish him a speedy recovery.
On the flip side of that, you've got Joelinton who can play there and has at times for you. How good was it to have him back? And it looked as though he'd never been away the way he performed the other night. Yeah,
it was a really good performance from Joey. I think most of all physically, because he hadn't done a huge amount of training before the game. Desperate to get back, I could see that in him. But he was the one player in the first half who was, I thought, physically very good, in the sense that he was able to get close to people, but that's his game, that's his strength. But he managed to last the whole 90 minutes, which was great to see. Huge player for us, as you say. His versatility coming back into the squad's a massive thing.
And do you think maybe those players who, I think you've touched on Callum before, they want to play every game, they don't want to rotate, they don't sort of maybe don't understand that they have to sit out certain games. Do you think, seeing the injury list and the issues that you've got, the niggles you've got, do you think they're beginning to sort of understand and realise that it's going to be like this for the whole season and you're going to have to use the whole squad?
Yeah, I think the players do understand. I think they know, especially ones that maybe we are managing and have to manage. It's not really a choice. We have to do it to try and give them the best chance of staying fit. I think they understand, but I also think just it's inbuilt in the players. They want to play every game. Yeah. I don't think you can ever turn that on or off. But it's our job to try and give the squad the best chance of staying fit. Now we're going to pick up injuries. That's always going to happen, especially with the more games we have. The chances and the percentages go up. Now you've seen around the Premier League the amount of injuries there are at the minute is incredible. So we've got to give ourselves the best chance by trying to have the strongest squad we can.
And just finally from me, for Paul and Jamal, I suppose for Paul in particular, who hadn't started a game for more than a year, it would have been easy for them to get their heads down, wouldn't it? I mean, the way they reacted, the way they came in and performed against the best team in the country, could they now have sort of put themselves forward to play more for you in the coming weeks and months ahead?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think it is easy to put your head down, but you don't benefit at all individually from that, and the team doesn't benefit from that. I think they've seen the team's been very consistent, successful, and I think they've played a huge part in that themselves by training so well and pushing the current players that we have. But then your only way to try and get more football is when you do get your opportunity is to play well. It's the only way, and they both did really, really well for us, and I'm sure that will lead to more opportunities for them.
Thank you.
Morning, Eddie. I know there's been the Carabao Cup in the meantime, but what was it like for you as a manager watching that Sheffield United game back with a cupper, and what does a manager do in the week after an 8-0 win?
not get crazy on the scoreline. I think for us it was a great day. It was a great day for our supporters, a great day to share with them. I was really pleased with some of the goals and some of our football. But it's like anything, it's like if you lose, as we just went through 3 games where we didn't win, and that was difficult, but we don't get too low in those moments. You analyse it objectively. When you lose a game, everything's not bad. There's some really good bits. There's obviously some bits you have to improve. You feed that back to the players. And it's the same when you win 8-0. Not everything was perfect. There's stuff we needed to do better. And I think that's very much my method of work. Obviously, attached to that is how everyone feels about the situation, about what you're trying to deliver, and that changes based on results. But I don't think your attitude to it can.
Just on the draw, I think it's now in the last month, Newcastle have drawn PSG, Dortmund. I mean, you know already.
I'm glad someone noticed.
But, I mean, have you always had this good luck with draws or not?
It's yeah. I mean, I was actually with Lee when the draw came out, and it was. I'm not sure what my reaction was, but the away game itself, we wanted to be at home. I think that's where you always stand with cup draws. Ideally, you want to play in front of your own supporters, and then if you're travelling, you don't want to travel too far for them and for you. But it is what it is. We've got to get on with it. Yes, it's another tough one for us, but that's been in line with the season so far, as you say.
You talk about Harvey, you know, it being kind of shocking for him, especially so early on in his Newcastle United career. How is he in himself? Have you talked to him, and how is he mentally about this situation?
Yeah, I've talked with him. He's a very stable, level lad. He's a great character. So yes, he's hugely disappointed and frustrated because he wanted to show everybody what he could do here, and he wanted to contribute. But he's just very recently a new dad for the first time, so that's a great moment in his life. So I always say when these things happen that you have to try and draw positives from it. He'll have a chance to be with his family, maybe a little bit more than he would have been, settle that part of his life down, and then when he comes back, which will be very quickly around the corner, he'll have a big part to play in the next part of the season.
Of course, he was replaced on Sunday by Anthony Gordon, who's enjoying a really, really good run of form at the minute. Can you remember when you first kind of heard of or saw Anthony, and what did you think of him at the time? Did you see this potential in him immediately, do you think?
Yeah, I remember him going on loan. Well, I knew him before going on loan, but I remember he went on loan into the Championship, I think, with Preston, and we were sort of tracking him in those early days as a player of real potential. And of course, he came back to Everton and did really, really well initially. Built up a really good reputation, and I think with a player like that, you sort of think at that moment that you'll never have a chance to sign him because he's going to go on and do great things for his club, and it was only due to circumstance we were able to sign him, and we didn't hesitate when that opportunity arose. I think he's a player of great potential physically. He's incredible, a great athlete and very, very quick, but he's got quality. He's got real technical quality. We saw that when he first signed here, because this is a tough group to come into technically. You've got to be very good to survive. He did, and then now we're trying to add layers to his game to make him even better.
Just on Burnley, kind of the same question around Vincent Kompany, I suppose. Obviously, everyone knows what Vincent achieved as a player. Did you ever kind of, when you watched him play as a player, think there is a coach in there that could be his next step?
I'm not going to say I'm that smart that I can pick future managers from watching players play. What I will say about his playing career, he was an incredible leader, and you could see that. You could see that on the pitch, you could see that off the pitch, how he conducted himself, how he was a real personality within that Manchester City team that drove them to win all those trophies very early in their dominance. Now some of those leaders historically will go into management, some won't, but he seems to have found his own niche and developed his career his way, and his style of play at Burnley is a great thing as a fellow coach to see, and I admire him a lot.
And just very, very finally, I know you're a music connoisseur, so you might be delighted, you might not have
Thank you.
heard it, but you may have heard the latest song on the Terraces, Status Quo's rocking all over the world, about you and Jason Tindall. I don't know if you had heard it, what you made of it, and whether it had been hummed around the Howe household recently.
I've certainly heard it. Status Quo, a band that I admire, so I think any reflection of love from the supporters to us is gratefully received. I prefer it to be for the players, to be honest. Always sort of want want that emotion and feeling to always go onto the pitch. But as I say, me and Jason are very grateful for it.
Eddie, another player that caught the eye the other night was Tino Livramento. What did you make of his performance, and how vital is he going to be to the squad going forward?
Yeah, great performance. I thought when we saw their team sheet, we knew immediately it was going to be a really good test for him. He was one of the best players in the Premier League last year. And, you know, how would he react to that? How would he perform defensively? I thought he was excellent. Right from the start of the game, I thought he was very aggressive, very front foot, very proactive in his defending, and he didn't really change that attitude throughout the whole game. And I think the longer the game went on, you saw more of an attacking threat from him as our team improved. So I thought it was a great performance.
You mentioned there you having, obviously, like most managers in the Premier League, having to manage injuries. Vincent Kompany has been quoted as saying that he thinks there should maybe be a cap on the number of games that players play in a season. Would you be sort of keen on that?
I'd have to give that a little bit more thought before giving you a snap answer. I think we're experiencing something different this year for the first time. I think there's clubs that have been in these competitions for years and years, and obviously then the load on those players that play every competition and international football goes up, and that's where we've got to be smart sometimes by trying to give them a rest at the appropriate time. But it's very difficult then when they're your best players, and there's a huge expectation on you to get results consistently. So I don't know, that's something I have to think about.
And in terms of the players, I mean, because there's so many games, it means there isn't so much training, but I imagine most players would rather have that. They'd rather play than be training a lot in between games, would they?
I don't know, I think there's a balance. I think sometimes if you're just playing games consistently and not training, you lose part of your ability to develop your game. That's just my opinion. I was a player that loved to train. I like to play games, don't get me wrong, but I love to train. I love the feeling of training. I love the feeling of improving myself. I think there's a balance to everything. So I don't think playing necessarily every 2-3 days is sustainable long term.
Thank you very much.
One from Simon at the back.
The moment that was shared after the National League weekend was Anthony Gordon's sliding challenge just after half time. That's not the moment that won you the game, but it did help change the mood. How much do you see the value in moments like that, and how much do you like to see your team producing moments like that?
Yeah, absolutely right. I thought it was a pivotal moment in the game, and I don't think it was just that moment. I thought there was also the moment where Alex Isak did the same thing and almost celebrated like he scored a goal, and I think we need to see moments like that, really, in that way, as in moments to not necessarily celebrate, but you get my point. Almost, it's a reflection of how we want to play, and when we're at our very best, you can see it running through the team. And I felt in that second half it was there. So yes, Anthony, I think, initiated a reaction in the crowd, in our energy, and then we were able to sustain it after that point.
Okay, Dillian?
Eddie, just going back to Harvey, you said the other day it was an unusual injury. Is it a fracture, or is it a tendon or something like that?
No, it's not a fracture. I don't actually know the right term to use, but it is an unusual injury, and we're sort of a little bit baffled as to how it's come about and why it's come about. But sometimes, as much as you try and find a reason, that sometimes there is no reason. It's just one of those things that happens, and yeah, I think he knew straight away. You could see him go down on the pitch. It's very unusual to see that, and he said he knew straight away that he had a problem.
Reza asked earlier about the run, the two different runs you've had. You've had a great Champions League draw at Milan. You've now beaten Man City in the Cup. Does that change your mindset at all about how you approach a season and what you may be able to achieve?
I don't think it changes it. I think the only thing it hopefully changes is our internal beliefs that we can go anywhere and win, and I want the players to feel that and embrace that feeling. I believe it, but ultimately the players are the ones that have to have that same feeling when they enter the pitch. We can go anywhere. If we at our very best, we can compete, and hopefully that's further evidence of that.
Me, Eddie, Bruno's picked up in the last couple of games, obviously coming in on a new contract. How important is it to get that sort of done and dusted and sort of him?
I think for any player, the contract is important because you want stability, and I think you want the player to enter training games. I'm not talking about Bruno here, I'm talking about any player, without thinking about their future, just thinking about football and taking everything off the pitch away from them. So whatever personal issues they may have, contract issues they may have, the football is the most important thing. And I think if any player plays and trains to his best, they're only going to receive good things off the back of that. So fingers crossed we can reach a conclusion for it.
And there was some suggestion of a clause in the contract. Is that something that bothers you, or is it just part of the modern game now?
I don't know anything about that, Lee. So.
Okay, and just going into this one, I guess you've got to treat Burnley with as much respect as you did Man City, as you're going to do with PSG. If you don't get that part right, then that's where it could go wrong, I guess.
Yeah, of course. I think we've done really well in that respect. So we've gone from Milan to Sheffield to Manchester City, so different challenges, but each one I thought the players' focus was very good. I don't expect that to change, and you're absolutely right, it can't change, because that is the moment that we will have problems. So I think we need the same concentration, the same motivation that we've shown in those games, and then I back us.
Thanks, Jordan.
Just mentioned Joe Willock earlier. Can I just check how he's doing and when you expect him to be back?
Yeah, he's doing very well. He's, we hope, in a different phase now of his comeback. He's on the grass, not with us, but with the physios and sports scientists, really trying to build up his resilience and his load, doing well, looks happy. I think the physios have set sort of quite a good time for him to come back, so I don't think we're going to rush him back. I think we've got to be careful. So I still think he's got a way to go. I think it's due to return to training towards sort of the middle to end of October. And then, of course, they need a little bit of time to get his proper fitness back.
And just going back to Wednesday, you made 10 changes, which means a lot of your squad now have competitive minutes. In many ways, does that make it easier to keep the squad happy when we do have opportunities?
Well, absolutely, and that's why every team you pick is difficult, because I can't pick 11 players, the same 11 players in every game. That's not going to happen, and you need to keep the squad fit, focused, and all fighting for places. But they also need then to be ready to take their chance when it comes, and the only way they can do that is if they do play football at some stage. So we saw that as a good opportunity to give everyone a window, or the majority a window to play, and they didn't let us down.
Just Greg.
Morning, Eddie. This is a theoretical question as much as anything else, but with Callum and Alex Nurse and Slate Knox, who would be your emergency striker?
We have a couple of options. Well, yeah, I think we probably have more than a couple. So I think Anthony Gordon's played as a striker, of course, for England and did very well in that position. So he would probably be with Jacob Murphy, who can also play the position, probably the first in line. And then, of course, you've got Joelinton, who has played the role historically, play it slightly, probably differently to the other players that we've got. So I do think we've got some options in there. And also we've got the option of sort of trying something quite different tactically to try and fill that position. So I feel we've got options.
What would that be?
I don't know, I haven't thought of it yet.
On the subject of strength and fitness, we're talking here about Callum and Alex, but in Paris there's a lot of talk about Kylian Mbappe's ankle. Can I just ask, do you want a player like Kylian Mbappe to play against you on Wednesday or not?
Do you want the honest answer or the
diplomatic one?
I'll give the diplomatic one. Yes, we do.
On Bruno's contract, when do you envisage that being announced, that it's been agreed? There's been so much noise around it, it's supposedly verbally agreed, handshake and all that sort of stuff.
You might know more than me, Luke. I don't know. That's not something, as I said, that I'm involved in or dealing with day to day. I'm focusing on so many games that's taken care of by other people. So I'm sure I'll hear, hopefully before you, but maybe not.
And there's also been some stuff about Joelinton, who he's contracted to 2025, and obviously Sean Longstaff as well. I presume they would be two players you wholeheartedly recommend for new contracts.
Yeah, definitely. As I say, we want to try and build the squad. I've said this before. That doesn't mean we take for granted keeping our players that we have. We have to give them the right environment to want to stay. Hopefully we can, and of course finances and everything comes into play there. So, but they're two huge players for us.
Thank you.
Dominic? On Wednesday we saw Pep Guardiola sort of share a friendly word with Anthony Gordon and Bruno at full time. Just as an opposition manager, what do you think that shows about those players in particular?
I've got no idea. I didn't see it, so maybe they know Pep from former years. I don't know.
And Bruno, you mentioned potentially struggling with his ankle, got through the game, but how's he feeling ahead of Saturday?
Yeah, I think he did twist his ankle in the game. I think initially it probably took him some time to run it off, but hopefully he's okay.
Harvey Barnes, you said it's an unusual injury. This type of injury in 3 months' time, speaking hypothetically, you'd be ready to start games, or will you have to manage that over a more extended period?
I think the 3 months is probably to return to training, but we always hope and live in hope that he can come back sooner than that, but I think that's probably where it is.
Yeah. Dom Shaw?
Obviously you made the 10 outfield changes on Wednesday, but Nick stayed in goal. Why was that?
Well, Martin was ill. Loris has just returned from injury himself, so I think it was quite an easy decision to stick with Nick in goal. 4
clean sheets now. Obviously, he had the injury at the end of last season. Is he back to his best now, Nick? Yeah, I think he's performed really well. I think the Milan game, of course, naturally took the headlines. I think because he made some great saves. But I think his all-round game has been very, very good. The last 4 games, you don't keep clean sheets in the Premier League without your goalkeeper playing well, or 3 clean sheets without the goalkeeper playing well. And he's a huge presence for us. And he has been very consistent last year and this year. So I think he's in good form. Obviously, he was left out of the England squad. How as a character did he react to that? Typical Nick, really. You don't really see too much of his thoughts or emotions affect his training performance or his match performance. He's very stable, very level. I'm sure he'll be feeling a lot of different emotions about lots of things in his life, maybe England included. But I think he's used it perhaps as a motivation for him to perform so well. Thanks, Luke.
Martin?
Hi, Eddie. You had the summer to kind of reflect on. It was finishing 4th, the biggest achievement in your managerial career, and will it be more difficult to replicate this season, and if so, why?
I don't really tend to look at my career that way. I honestly don't. I don't think, oh, that's the best, or I've never have. I always look to the future and go, right, now I want more. So I don't know the answer to that. I think it will be the most difficult challenge we have to get to that position again or improve on that position. Naturally, with the demands that we face this season, the competition that we're fighting with in the Premier League, it's going to be very, very difficult. But that's not to say I don't think we can achieve it.
And where do you rank the importance of your time at Burnley? I think it was Brett Pittman I spoke to a while ago who said when you came back you'd gone up 3 levels. In terms of your career, how important in terms of your career, how important was that?
It was huge in my career. So I look at that 18 months at Burnley as brilliant learning for me. Going from Bournemouth to Burnley was a total change on and off the pitch, and I inherited a team that had just got relegated from the Premier League. So huge test, and one that I look back on now with real fondness. Really, it was a real challenge. I found it very difficult, but you learn so much in those moments, and I did. I learned so much, and I hope I went back to Bournemouth a better manager. It's nice of Brett to say 3 levels, but I look at it just with great emotions now, and I do genuinely wish Burnley huge success. I do owe them a lot as a football club.
Hard to say, but without Burnley, might you not be here? Was it that significant?
Yeah, I definitely think I wouldn't be. I don't think I'd have progressed as a manager as quickly as I have. I think that experience in itself taught me so many valuable lessons that I've taken forward.
Kieran?
Did you and your family ever get to Sycamore Gap, and what have you made of what's happened?
No, I didn't, and I'm really, really sad that I wasn't able to get there before, obviously, what's happened in the last few days. Really saddened by it, really. I don't know quite how to describe it, but when I heard the news, I was just so disappointing that an act can ruin something that's there for the pleasure of everybody, and it's such a beautiful thing. So yeah, very sad.
On football, Craig Bellamy is coming back here tomorrow. He's someone who opposing fans maybe love to hate. Do you see similarities with Anthony Gordon and how when he was playing with Everton at St James he got hostile reception, but they've really embraced him now?
Yeah, possibly. I think I don't know Craig that well, so I don't know necessarily his personality well enough to sort of make comparisons with Anthony. All I can say with Anthony, he is someone that the opposing fans can sometimes seem to want to attack, but knowing him as a player and a person as I do, he's just a lovely lad, and sometimes his willingness to want to win seems to rub people up the wrong way, but it's coming from a very good place. It's not coming from any malice, or he's just a lad that loves football and he wants to win.